recording for the Fort La Crosse zoning code update process. This is a recording of the presentation that we gave at our most recent round of public input meetings on October 29th, 2025. So to just briefly give some background and familiarize folks with the subject, La Crosse is updating its zoning code ordinance. Zoning is essentially has two main parameters. It imposes a set of dimensional requirements on buildings and areas. So it kind of helps determine what a community can build, where and how. Those dimensional characteristics are lot sizes, setbacks, building heights, number of dwelling units. And then it also has the geographic mapping element, kind of dictating what type of land use city can impose and where, and zoning districts are generally categorized in those residential, commercial, industrial, and agricultural districts. What is this project? So like I said, La Crosse is doing a pretty comprehensive and holistic review and rewrite of its zoning code and so subdivision ordinances. Really, the intention here is to modernize regulations and create a more user-friendly code. So that's both internally for the city and externally for the community. We want people to be able to understand it better, and we want staff and the city to be able to implement it more easily. The steering committee for this project is the City Plan Commission. They will make formal recommendations to the La Crosse Common Council, who will be the final adopter. So these are the core decision makers for the project, but also if there was to be one more arrow above the City Plan Commission, it would really be the public. So the public is helping determine the direction and recommendations for the project, which are then being fed to the Plan Commission. We kicked off this project at the end of 2024, and for much of this year, we've been working through, some initial community engagement, analysis, and recommendations. And right now, we're in kind of the middle of phase 3, which is codify and create. So we are working through writing and updating the kind of initial draft for the subdivision and zoning ordinance. And right now, here in October and early November, we are presenting to the public the initial kind of approach and direction for the zoning code rewrite and some preliminary recommendations. And then as we move into next year, we'll get additional feedback from the public and move into the adoption process. Just to recap, we have done a series of engagement activities, including an online survey. We were active in Housing Week, which took place in April of 2025. We did a series of neighborhood presentations to neighborhood associations, and we did a whole slew of interviews and focus groups with stakeholders. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Mike.
Thank you, Emily. In order to update the zoning code and the subdivision regulations, we really have to rely on, according to state statutes, established, approved land use policy, primarily for the zoning code. That is the city's comprehensive plan, which was adopted in 2023. So it provides some specific direction and guidance for how we should update the zoning code. Also, recent policy documents that also come into play include a housing study that was conducted in 2024 and the downtown plan, Imagine La Crosse Downtown, which was prepared in 2022. So the notion that there is a legal and a policy framework for how we have the ability to update the zoning code and subdivision regs. So based on an adopted land use policy. Also, an important part of this process is to align with current state statutes that have been updated and provide precedents for local municipalities, and also making sure we're in alignment with Supreme Court rulings such as free speech and things of that nature. The approach that we're taking is what we call character-based. So in other words, understanding the physical form, character, pattern of the city, whether that's neighborhoods, districts, or corridors. The comprehensive plan organizes the city into a set of neighborhoods, districts, and corridors. So we paid very close attention to those physical characteristics and then the ability to quantify some of those characteristics. this goes in hand with what we're referring to as form-based standards, which again relate to physical form of particular residential, commercial, and industrial buildings. Something new for the code we're considering here are a set of new mixed-use districts that don't technically exist today in the code. This process will also update design standards and update sign regulations. Some of the proposed zoning districts that we're considering include consolidation of the ag district and the exclusive ag district, the ability to combine a number of residential districts like R1, R2, R3, and R4 into one single neighborhood residential district, which could accommodate up to 3 or 4 units per lot. Some of the multiple dwelling districts would be transitioning to either mixed residential or neighborhood mixed use, which would be also a new mixed use category. On the commercial side, local business would be addressed through a neighborhood mixed use district or a more urban mixed use district. And in certain areas like these commercial districts, we're looking at having a commercial corridor district to regulate development and investment. And then certain special districts like downtown would have even more specificity to some of the zoning code regulations and subdivision update as well. On the industrial side, we're considering creating one industrial district instead of two, maintaining the public utility district, eliminating a parking lot district that is no longer, it has never really been used or mapped in the city. Plan development would be maintained. Public and semi-public districts would transition into an industrial district. Conservancy, we would also look at retaining that as well. There are also a couple of other districts that are very sparsely used. One's a neighborhood center overlay district. There's only one place in the city that's mapped. And then obviously historic zoning district overlays would be maintained as they exist today. As far as what's happening next, as Emily referred to, we're modernizing and streamlining and simplifying the code using graphics, pictures, words, tables to help people understand more clearly and simply what requirements there would be for a particular district. Again, relying on form-based standards to help people understand a particular, say, residential or commercial form that needs to be referenced. And then in some cases, we'll use detailed maps, like in downtown, to address additional regulations related to specific character or urban pattern. We're also updating the subdivision regulations. And again, the notion here is the idea of reorganizing, streamlining, simplifying, making sure that there's good alignment and reference to the any Wisconsin state statutes that apply or have been updated that would apply here. And again, making sure that we bring in staff comments as well as other requirements that would ensure clarity and transparency in the approval process. Last but not least, upcoming milestones. We're in the draft new zoning and subdivision ordinance section of the process now. That'll go through early 2026. There'll be a second round of neighborhood association meetings coming up in a few weeks in November. A second round of public open houses will happen in spring of 2026. And then, as always, you can visit forwardlacrosse.org to find ways to understand what updates are going on, provide comments, stay in touch with this process. And with that, we appreciate your attention and look forward to seeing your comments and participation in the future. Thank you.